Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. On today's video I want to do a little bit of a different kind of video to normal. This video is going to be all about the learning behaviours around resilience and grit and that never give up attitude that I try to teach children when I'm in school. Hopefully you can get some value from it. Hopefully there'll be something in here that you can use yourself. But yeah, let's get into it. So my inspiration for this video, it was actually when I was a teacher in year 4 and I had a particular child in my class. So I'm going to start this video with a short story, okay, about this particular child. And it was inspirational for me because I was kind of thinking about the impact of having this growth mindset, this resilient attitude. I was really thinking about how I could bring that into my practice at the time. And it was a really great experience to see this sort of happening live in one of the lessons, in one of the classrooms that I was teaching in at the time. So I'll start off by saying, like I was saying, I was in year 4, and within each year group, children have a chance, sort of year 3 upwards, to gain one of these, okay, a pen. I don't know if all schools do this, but a lot of schools will have the children write in pencil first, and then they have the chance, if their handwriting is at a certain standard or expectation, to earn one of these and get their pen license. Now, this was always a really great motivator for the children, and it wasn't the teacher's job to give out these pens, it was actually the head teacher's job, so it made it even more of a big thing. All the children wanted to get their pen license. And so I was saying, I was in year 4, and I'm sitting at my desk one day in my class, and I have this poster up in my classroom, and it says how many children in my class have got a pen license. And at that point, at the beginning of year 4, only about 3 or 4 children had been able to achieve it. And so I had this big thing. All right, this year, everybody, okay, we're going to have a target for the whole class. Every person in this class, I want you to try and get your pen license. And even if you don't achieve it this year, okay, think about the improvements you will make, and you might get it when you're in year 5. So we had this huge thing. I wanted the children to be really enthused about it, really engaged and really determined to achieve their pen license. But out of the corner of my eye, sitting on a desk just to the right hand side of me, I saw one boy, and when I delivered this news to him, his head sort of dropped down, okay? And I saw his head dropping down onto the desk, and I could see that this news had actually had the opposite of effect of what I had intended. He was actually feeling quite down about it. And so I asked this boy, what's wrong? You know, why are you feeling down? What's the matter? And I knew this particular boy had found writing particularly difficult. So for him, this seemed like a challenge that he'd never achieve. And he sort of said to himself, well, the class won't all get their pen license because I won't be able to get it. And in that moment, I saw an opportunity for potentially this boy to learn an important lesson about himself and about things that we try to achieve. So I could have said, well, you know, you can give it a try, you know, we can see how it goes, you might get it. But I really wanted him to believe that he stood a chance of getting it. So I said to him, look, I know that you think your handwriting isn't great at the moment, but, you know, I believe you can do it. And it only takes one person to believe in you. Now, he didn't believe in himself at that point, but because I had said that I believed in him, that was enough. And what I saw was an amazing transformation, okay? So he came in every morning, and he'd sit at the desk, and I'd see him writing there. And while all the other children might be chatting or doing an activity on their tables, he'd always get out his handwriting book or a whiteboard and practice his handwriting. And straight from the get-go, I could see that he had the right attitude and he wanted to try and do this. But it was going to be difficult. So then I said to him, look, take this book home with you. I'm going to give you this small book here. And what I've learned from the way that people achieve things is it's not what they do while they're in school, but what they do in their other time, so outside of school, okay, during break time, during lunchtime, whenever you find a time, a spare pocket of time, use that time to practice your handwriting. And for some children, they give it a go, they have a go at it, and then after a few weeks of trying, they stop. But what I saw this boy do was the complete opposite of that. Every time he had an opportunity to practice his handwriting, he was doing it. He would take his book away, he would practice it at home, he'd bring it back, he'd fill pages and pages worth of these books with handwriting. So I said to him, okay, let's celebrate some of this success. And we showed his book to the rest of the class, and they were amazed. They couldn't believe how much handwriting he had actually done. And then all of a sudden, all the hands went up in the classroom. They all wanted these little handwriting books as well. And from somebody who really didn't think they could do it, he'd become an inspiration for the rest of the class. And so as the year went on, I could see some children go up for their pen license assessment, and they'd achieve their pen license. And then it was his time to go up. And I said, look, I think you might be ready. And he went up to the head teacher's office. And I remember the day he walked up with his book, had his little book in his hand, and he was really, really looking forward to it. You could see it in his face. And off he went. He walked out of my classroom. And a few moments later, he arrived back, and there was almost this big intake of air in the classroom. Has he managed to do it? Has he not? And he brought his book back in, and I could see on his face that he didn't look really, really extremely happy, but he had this sort of determined look in his eye. And I said, how did it go? And he goes, well, Miss, the head teacher, thought that my handwriting improved loads, and she was really impressed. And she says, all I need to do is join my R's in this way, and I'll get it. And instead of feeling like, he didn't get it, didn't get his pen license assessment, he'd taken on the feedback from the head teacher, and he knew that the improvements he'd done so far, he knew that because he'd improved so much that it'd only take this one small thing and he potentially might get his pen license. So he carried on practicing, and it showed wonderful, wonderful resilience. And at the beginning of the year, if you'd have lined all of the books up on the table and looked at the handwriting, this boy, not to be mean about it or anything, but his handwriting was possibly the worst out of them all, okay? The one that needed the most improvement. And yet by the end of the year, he had achieved his pen license, where some of the other children who potentially started with better handwriting hadn't quite got there yet. And it was all down, not to his ability, not to where he started, but down to this resilient, never give up attitude that he showed. And this attitude is so, so important. And I found that often children who have this sort of resilient attitude, or you can foster it through their lessons, these are the children who really make fantastic progress and do well when they're in school. And this got me thinking a little bit about doing a video about this, and how we can possibly help to develop this idea of grit and resilience in children. Now, I've read a book about this as well, which is a really good book called Grit. It's a really good book to read. It's got some wonderful things in here. It's written by a woman called Angela Duckworth. And in this book, she goes into detail about why passion and resilience are the secrets to success. And she gives loads of different examples of people who've achieved really great things in their lives, not because they were the most talented or they were the smartest, but because they had this never give up attitude, this idea that they could achieve things with hard work, resilience, and then overcoming those difficulties and failures when they came up. Now, I wanted to share with you a few things that I've sort of seen through teaching in the classroom and trying to develop this in children, and some things that might be helpful when you're trying to work on these things with your children at home, or even with your classes if you've got a class who are particularly not very resilient, okay, and struggle with failure. So the first point I want to make is that this never give up attitude, okay, and this desire for perseverance can be the difference between why, somebody achieved their pen license and somebody doesn't, or somebody makes it onto the football team and somebody doesn't, or can be the difference between, even just a personal goal, being able to achieve it and not being able to achieve it. And it's a really, really important tool for the children to have in their toolkit for when things get difficult, when the chips are down, and they've found that they've not been able to do things maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. And I always say to the children in my class, it doesn't matter how many times you try something. Okay, you might not get it the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. Okay, you can only fail at it if you give up. That's where true failure happens, because you stop trying. But if you keep going, eventually, maybe it'll take you 10 times. You might get there in the end. Okay, and that's that's the message that I try to deliver to them. Okay, whatever happens, keep going. If it's something you want to achieve, just keep heading towards that goal. And the first step that they say in this book, and I definitely agree, when you're doing something, is just show up. All right, so that when things are difficult, sometimes all you got to do is show up, just turn up. All right, and I know this kind of links back to school and attendance and getting into school, but it is really that important. The teachers can't teach you if you're not in school, and you can't learn something if you don't turn up to the lesson. So just turning up is like the first thing, and sometimes that's the scariest part. And once you've overcome that one hurdle, you're sat there. Your instincts will take over. You start to engage. But just getting to that point can sometimes be the trickiest bit. So just turning up. And in the book, it quotes Woody Allen, and he says that 80% of success in life can be put down to just showing up. So just showing up, all right, is the first, sometimes the most trickiest step that you can take. Okay. The next thing would be whatever it is that you have to do in a particular day. Okay, start with the hardest thing that you have to do. Okay, and what I sometimes what it says in here, and sometimes I share this with the kids. It depends on how old they are. If they're too young, they get a bit scared. But if we say begin your day by eating a squashed frog. All right, and that doesn't mean actually going out into the garden, getting a frog and eating it for your breakfast. What that means is, whatever the most difficult thing is that you have to do in that day, start with that. All right, don't procrastinate, don't put it off, because often if you can get that one thing done at the very beginning of the day, it energizes you. Okay, gives you loads of energy, and you find that your productivity levels go up, and you manage to get on and on and on and do loads of different things after that, because that was the one thing that you were worrying about doing, and you've done it. You started your day with that one thing. So often in schools, they always start with literacy and maths and reading. All of those really sort of trickier subjects are all part of the beginning of the day. And there's another reason to that as well, about our minds being fresher and being able to take on more cognitively at the beginning of the day. But I would go back even in your sort of personal time. Think about homework. Think about projects you've got to do at school. You get your homework on a Thursday or a Friday, go home on that evening and make a start on it. Or even the next morning, get up fresh and start it and get it done. Don't wait till after the weekend or the Monday or the Tuesday before it's due in to start doing it, because you'll find that you worry about it anyway, and that drains your energy. Whereas you want to get it done and get it started straight away. Make a start on it, all right? So that would be another piece of really good advice, okay? The other thing, in this book, there's a chapter specifically on how to build grit and resilience within children. And it talks about giving children the opportunity to explore loads of different things and experiment in loads of different things without trying to pigeonhole them or funnel them down into one area, okay, and say, you must do this, or I did this, therefore you need to do that. See where their interests lie. So give them an opportunity to try lots of different things, particularly when they're young, all right, and experience failure in a really safe environment. If you to ask a group of reception children, okay, if you said to them, put your hand up if you can sing in the class, what you would see is all these little hands going up, and every single hand in the class would be, yeah, I can sing, because nobody's ever told them that they can't. And it's a great attitude to have, isn't it? And particularly when younger children are at that stage, their brains are like sponges and they're trying so many different things, okay? Give children an opportunity to try loads of different things until they find their interest. Don't force them to do something that they're not really interested in doing, because they're more likely to not be bothered about it and give up. I know from my own experience, I started learning piano. I thought I had an interest for it. I didn't. And I carried on with those lessons for a long time when I probably should have said, actually, this is not something I'm interested in. But once you've found that interest, once a child has that interest, then within that, it's about encouraging them to keep working hard and keep trying. And when something happens and they fail at it, if it's something they're really passionate about, then let them keep going at it, keep trying, and overcoming those difficulties and failures in a safe environment. Okay, like the boy in my class who earned his pen license when he really didn't think that he would get it. It's not just about the pen, but that's a really important lesson for him that he can carry through life. When it comes to something else that he's going to do when he leaves school, something that he thinks is going to be difficult, he knows that if he works hard and put his mind to it, that he might be able to achieve that because he did it in the past. And that's the important lesson that goes with it. So the other thing that it says in the book is try not to get children to think too personally about the learning or work that they do and attach themselves too personally to it. So I know as adults we do this as well. Something we've worked so long and hard on, a part of our ego becomes part of that we've produced, and if anybody criticizes it or we find that this finds fault with it, we can take it very personally. So to understand that even if we finished a piece of writing or we've done our maths learning and there's a few mistakes and errors in that, to see any feedback that we get from our teachers or our parents, to see that feedback as something really positive. And it's a gift because the person who's giving it to you cares about you and wants you to achieve the things that you want to. So when I was correcting this boy's handwriting and maybe he made mistakes with 3 or 4 different letters, I told him, don't get down about this though, because I know you can do it. I believe in you. And by making these corrections and taking on this feedback, that's how you're going to get to that point. These are just small steps in that journey to where you want to be. And not to see that feedback as something negative, but a gift from somebody who cares about you, who wants you to do well. Okay? There was a study in the book that said that also consider the way that you give feedback. So it said that there was two classes and they both got feedback. Both got comments on their learning, and the way that comment was delivered was different. So in one class, it said that I'm giving you these comments as my feedback to your work, and that was it. In the other class, it said I'm giving you these comments because I have high expectations and I know you can reach them. So within that comment, there's also that idea of self-belief, isn't there? That you believe in that person, you believe in that child, and you believe they can do it. Now, as a result of the study, they found that the children who got that feedback that said, I have high expectations, and I know that you can reach them, those children actually made double the amount of corrections that the other children did. So delivering that feedback and that message and thinking about how you do it is also really important to encouraging and fostering that positive attitude that you want. Okay. It talks a lot in this book about Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and how his childhood, through what he experienced, how that helped him to achieve the great things that he has done. Again, going back to the earlier point that I made, he said a huge mistake people make is that they try to force an interest on themselves. So as adults, we do this all the time, don't we? Oh, I must do this, or I must do that. But with children, they don't really know what they like. They don't really know. They're kind of experimenting and exploring. So let them do it until they find their interests. And it talks a lot about Jeff Bezos' mum and how she was in helping him and encouraging his interests. And some of the things, I mean, he was a really smart kid in the book. He was obviously very high intelligence, and somebody once said, he came up to his mum and asked her about all this scientific stuff and started explaining it to her. And another parent said to Jeff Bezos' mum, "Oh, did you understand any of that?" And she said, "It's not important that I understand everything. It's important that I listen." So she listened to him. He felt listened to. He felt that what he had to say had some value, that the stuff that he'd learned, okay, had some value, and that was so important. Okay, that's that fostering of that interest. Another thing about Jeff Bezos is quite interesting. His mum found out that he was truanting from school, and he wasn't attending his afternoon classes. And when she found out what he was doing, he was actually visiting an engineering museum and learning things about engineering that he was really interested in. So she didn't scold him, she didn't tell him off and say, "You shouldn't have been doing this, you should have been in school." She actually said, "Okay, well, let's find a way that you can develop this engineering interest in a sort of more legal way, where you can do this and not have to truant from school." So, it's also always about fostering those interests, letting a child explore and decide what they really like, and then trying encouraging them in that way, and giving them that self-belief and that idea that they can do it, that even if they don't believe in themselves, that you do, and you'll listen to them. Now, that's what I found. These are just my opinions, things that I've read, things that I've seen in the classroom. Obviously, I'm sure that other teachers out there have seen similar things happen. And as parents, hopefully you've seen things like this from your children as well. But I know that, having that growth mindset, being able to overcome difficulties, and being able to come back from something that's happened, that come back from mistakes, and understanding failure as a positive learning experience. These things are so important. We're finding more and more in the classroom that the children have these positive learning behaviors. And when we teach them all the time to the children, because it really helps them to progress. The way they see themselves as a learner really helps them to develop in all of their sort of academic subjects. So definitely something to think about when the children at home are not wanting to do their homework, not really interested in it, to possibly have a think about some of the things in this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found some value in it, and I'll see you in the next one.